Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Floor is Yours. We're back with the normal weekly debates, and this time the motion we have is the House believes the police should not be allowed to use force as and when they see fit. Our judges today are Komal Koli Majumdar as well as Pranav Chaudhary. Thank you guys for coming in. And the order of speakers in terms of for and against are Aditya Raj Paul, Arihan Sapate, Gaurav Rampuria, Shubhayu, Prakhar Drolia, and Advitya Das. Right. That in mind, we'll be starting with Aditya Raj Paul. Aditya, are you with us?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So Aditya, we have 4 minutes on the clock. The floor is yours.
A very good afternoon to moderators, judges, the members of the House and audio opinion. Motion under the hammer reads that the House believes that police should not be allowed to use force as and when they seem fit. Well, before moving on to the constructives, I would like everyone to recall the extremely infamous yet disturbing video of the death of George Floyd, where a white policeman knelt on his neck for almost 8 minutes and is suffocated to death. So, ladies and gentlemen, what other example can we use to encompass the entire purview of today's debate? Well, I would like the members of the House, as well as everyone in the House, to ponder upon the audacity that the present day police officers have got. So, how can we even imagine that a person can kneel on some civilian's neck for almost 8 minutes while he suffocates to death? And what was his fault? That he counterfeited a $20 bill. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have to ask me, I totally blame the system. It is a system that has time and time again have turned a blind eye to all these kind of incidents, all these kind of wonders, which has happened from 2014, 15, and even today. In 2014, what happened with the case of Michael Brown in Mississippi, or what happened for Freddie Gray in Baltimore, and even in 2020, where almost 500, almost 600 people have been killed by the police force in America, while only 27 officers have died, and in most of the cases, the officers have died because of gunfire. Well, the police force has been given the force to use so that they can protect the people and they can establish law and order. Well, if this force is used as a ricochet for to harm the society itself and the civilians, well, how do we justify we give the force even to the police? Well, by members of side opposition might even point out that at various occasions, there is points where the police are at mortal danger and they will need to have to use arms or even force in order to self-defend themselves. Well, to that answer, I totally agree upon that. Obviously, they have a very dangerous task and they will have to use forces in order to defend themselves. But can we use that argument as a charade in order to justify the use of force at the whims and fancies? Absolutely not. Now, if it harms the police, if it harms the very civilians that they are about to take care of, absolutely not. So, what kind of solutions can be provided? This answer is very simple. That is, we need very structural reforms. What kind of reforms? Like 2 days ago, I was reading an article in which an Atlanta man was shot dead by a police officer when he was returning from a party, and he ran away from the police officer after failing a sobriety test. That is, he was not sober. So what we can see is a pattern. In most of the cases in which police brutality is happening, people are unarmed. The people do not have the power to actually mortally harm the police. So what we can do is we can establish a system in which the police will not be able, or we have to establish laws in which the police will not be allowed to use arms against someone who is not armed, or will not be encouraged to use force against someone who is not applying force. And again, that there might even rise a question where the police might be able to take that the offender was actually using arms, and for that he actually had to kill the offender. Well, to that question, I would like to know, we also have to establish an extremely efficient or even at best working judicial system in which after investigation we can apply stringent laws to actually punish the offending officers, so that, and in this way both the police force will be safe because they will be able to use force and mortal danger, as well as civilians will be safe because they will be able to have to deal with the risk of it. By that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. With that pinpoint ending to your speech, we will now be taking two questions to Aditya Raj. Is there anyone with a question? Right. Does anyone have a question towards Aditya Raj?
Yeah, I have one.
Right. Shubha, you go ahead.
So, sir, you basically brought in the case of George Floyd, but what are your comments on the basic fact that what the police officer did was against the American laws, and he has been given a trial or for what he has done? So, what one such incident can you take away the right of use of force by police?
Well, to answer your question, I've even given examples of police brutality that has happened in 2014, 2015, as well as all the. If you even look up that mappingpoliceviolence.org, it's it's a website that, powered by the American government itself that showcases police brutality, and it has shown that over like around 600 innocent people have been a victim of police brutality. Well, and I've even established points that I do not obviously afford force from the people. We have a working set of model in which they can use force as and when necessary. Well, that is my answer to your question. Thank you.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Shubayu, and you to Aditya for their answer. That in mind, Komal Kohli and Pranav, do either of you have a question towards Aditya Raj?
No, someone else. Okay.
Right. Komal Kohli, do you have a question?
No, Suryaj, I don't have one.
All right, perfect. So that in mind, we'll be moving to the next speaker then, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Shubhayu.
No, like I believe someone else was.
I apologize. It was
It's me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aryan. Right. So Aryan, you have
I have a clarification.
yes.
Since I'm the first opposition speaker, can I divide my time for first and last?
No, I apologize, but we will not be. That is something we used to do earlier, but we won't be doing it for this debate. So
Okay, fine.
that in mind, I'd request you to keep it as 4 minute stretch if your speech is that long. So yeah, you have 4 minutes on the clock. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, the floor is yours.
So, good evening to everyone. Now, this house believes that police using force is something like a taboo. Now, I need to put forward some arguments there. It's the policemen who get, who in practical life go through such pains in order to maintain law and order, and they often risk their lives while dealing with criminals who can possess deadly weapons or or anything which can harm the uh, public life or can disturb the law and order maintained in an area. So I think it should be lying on the discretion of the police to use force, and this standard contains a built-in measure of deference to the officers on the spot judgment about the level of force necessary. This is because it's the police that handles all kinds of criminals, and you never know that what type of weapon a criminal may have, and if he uses that weapon to kill the policeman itself, how can that be justified? And who shall we blame, the law or the criminal? Next argument that I will put forward is that we'll begin with a stat. There are nearly 1 in 3 Americans who own a gun as of 2020. So you can make out what risk it poses to the officers, the law enforcement officers. According to FBI, which publishes the data in the Uniform Crime Reports, from 1950 to 1980 to 2014, an average of 64 law enforcement officers were feloniously killed per year during an ambush with criminals. It's very unclear what constitutes the use of force. Is it the use of a firearm or just batons and sticks? If we continue to question the use of power of the police, we will soon also impose restrictions on the power of army and say that they should not kill the enemy army. Now, how can that be justified? So, my third argument is now if a person is accused of an offense punishable with death or life imprisonment, how can we term it unethical that a police officer uses lethal force on the criminal when he or she poses a threat to the life of the policeman itself? Now, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Aryan. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. So I believe that it should lie with the on the spot judgment ability of the police officer. The police officer are well trained and they know what to do in what circumstances. There are several laws which state that the police should have the right to maintain public order and tranquility by using any means. Yes, I agree that there are certain incidents which are hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Wrap up, Aryan.
Actually, I'm having some network issues.
No,
Can I
no.
continue?
Yeah, we can hear you. You have 10 seconds to go. Just wrap it up, please.
Okay. So there are certain incidents which are really unfortunate, but then that does not justify that the police should withdraw its use of force, because that's a powerful tool that it can use against the criminals for just for the sake of protecting law and order. I rest my case with this.
Right. With that, thank you very much, Aryan, for your speech. We will now be taking two questions upon his speech. We will first take the question from Gaurav and then take the question from Prakhar. Gaurav, go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Gaurav. Loud and
Yeah.
clear.
So the speaker mentioned that police officers are well trained and they know what they're doing, right? So considering that there are a variety of factors that go into how a police is taking a decision as to whether he should be using force in a particular situation or he should not be using force in a particular situation, and also considering that there are so many factors which go into it, the the decisions that a police officer takes, they're usually not the correct decision, as we can see from a lot of examples. So how do you justify this statement which you made?
Okay. See, the number of examples we get of police brutality, if you term it, or the misjudgment of policemen is quite few, because there are certain circumstances where where it is the now there's a certain limit to the judgment ability. Now, if there is a if if there is a criminal who's trying to escape or has committed a serious crime, is it not the duty of the policeman to resist that escape? And if it goes on to such an extent that it is uncontrollable within any
And
other
keep it
means
short,
other than
Aryan.
using, so I would like to state that if force is necessary to use to resist the escape of a criminal, it should be used without any restrictions.
Can I have a follow-up?
I'm sorry, Gaurav, but because we have a time constraint, we won't be allowing follow-ups. That in
Okay, sure.
mind, Prakhar, you have your question.
Thank you. So the speaker talked about not knowing if the victim has a weapon with him or not. Sir, how do you justify the police killing a 15-year-old teenager who was unarmed, who was found unarmed, and how do you justify the police killing that teenager and not even just slightly hitting him, but killing that teenager?
I know you are talking about the Tennessee versus Garner case, and I would again like to reiterate that a few sporadic cases cannot determine that the police use of force is unethical or should be curbed. Thank you.
Right. That in mind, thank you, Ariant. Prakhar, I hope that answers your question. We'll now be going to Kamal Kohli and Pranav. Do either of you have a question?
Suryansh, I have a question.
Right, go ahead, Kamal Kohli.
Right, hi. So you talked about the police and the army in the same breath. I want to know what you think is the difference between the police force and the army, and how that factors into using force as and when they see fit.
Okay, so there is subtle differences between army and police. However, the main aim of both of the professions is to maintain the security of the public civilians. So if we today curb the powers of the police, which is an important tool for its safety, for the safety of maintaining social law and order, after some years we may also argue that that if an army officer kills an enemy officer, so that's unjustified. So I think it's more or less comparable, it's at a parallel.
Right, fair enough. Thank you, Ariant. Kamal Kohli, I hope that answers your question.
Do you mind if I have a quick follow up? I don't mind otherwise.
Right, fair enough. Just go ahead.
Right. So then, do you not think there's a difference between police controlling the citizens of a country and an army fighting a war or defending borders?
I said that there are subtle differences, but then um, the police mainly uses lethal forces on criminals, and criminals cannot be are equally perpetrators of crime as the belligerents of war.
Right, fair
All
enough.
right.
Thank you, Ariant, for answering, and thank you, Kamal Kohli. Pranav, I assume you don't have a question.
It's okay, he's already answered 3 questions. Let's.
Fair enough. That in mind, we'll now be moving forward with the next speaker, which is Shubhayu. Shubhayu, are you with us?
I'm the next speaker.
Sorry, I apologize. Forgive my falter. Gaurav, you are the next speaker. Thank you for correcting me. Gaurav, you have 4 minutes on the clock like the others. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll go.
Yes. All right. You have 4 minutes on the clock. The floor is yours.
Right. So, members of the House, instead of mentioning the now overused example of George Floyd, I would like to mention another such unfortunate example. In California, an officer sitting in a police car in Vallejo shot and killed a 22-year-old man who was on his knees with his hands up. Only later did the police officers discover that the man who was suspected of trying to loot a Walgreens had a hammer in his sweatshirt pocket rather than a gun. The family's lawyer said that they requested the police for videotape from the body cam and from the store cameras, but the police haven't released the video yet, which clearly shows that any decision by the police force is usually not the correct or the best decision. A very good evening to all members of the House. The motion before us today reads that this House believes that police should not be allowed to use force as and when they see fit. And as a member of the proposition, I firmly stand for this motion. Now, members of the House, let's focus on the latter part of the motion, as and when they see fit. Now, if we are granting this much power to the police officers to use force whenever they deem it necessary, then we should be doing it under the purview that that a decision by police officers is always or almost always the correct decision. But any decision by a police officer is a very, very complex process. It has a multitude of factors to be taken into consideration, especially the present emotional condition of the officer. The police officers also need to decide to what extent they're supposed to use force and whether it's really necessary to use force in a particular situation or not. A particular situation may drive a particular police officer to use force, but another police officer may deem that force was not even required in that situation. And with so many factors in consideration, it is not at all likely that the police officers will take the rightful decision at any particular time, meaning that by empowering the police, all we are doing is we are causing a mayhem. Now, there will be some concerns regarding how the police officers are going to take any proper action and ensure peace without using any force. So let me emphasize this. Police officers shouldn't use force as in when they see fit. Rather, they should be empowered to use force by higher judicial authorities whenever necessary. Now, members of the House understand that if we empower the police officers to use force as and when they want to, then we are basically disempowering the entire judicial system and other senior legal authorities who actually are supposed to decide whether force should be used against a particular person or not. And alongside this, what we are just promoting lawlessness and disorder, because when a single person takes the entire law in his own hands and takes decisions which higher authorities should be taking, the repercussions are enormous. So just imagine 500,000 individuals doing that. It will only result in violence, disorder, and lawlessness. Now, the members of the opposition today are going to mention that the use of force by police officers in times of need can often save the lives of many individuals. But members of the House don't get bluffed by these fictitious arguments of the opposition, because they seem to live in a utopian society where something called police brutality doesn't even exist at all. The first speaker mentioned that there aren't many cases of police brutality, but sir, let me clear this out for you. The Nigerian police force is responsible for hundreds of extrajudicial executions and other unlawful killings and enforced disappearances every year. Is the life of hundreds of people for any country not considered important or not considered much? Understand that more often than not, the police officers will use force unnecessarily, causing more violence than is needed to resolve a situation. And you can take the example of any country in the world, and you can see that police brutality is already prevalent in the region, be it USA, be it Nigeria, be it India, and many other countries. So in conclusion, I would like to say that by empowering the police officers to use force as and when they want to, all we are doing is we are making police brutality legal, and we are empowering police officers beyond the need be, and boosting violence by them even more. Thank you.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for your speech, Gaurav. With that, we will now be taking questions upon his speech. We will take two. Are there any questions towards Gaurav? Right. Is there not a single question to Gaurav? Right. Don't worry, Gaurav. There's no need to smile just yet. Kamal Kohli or Pranav, do either of you have a question for Gaurav? Oh, never mind. Shubhayu, do you have a question, I assume?
Yeah. So, sir, you mentioned that law and there are being killed. You mentioned in the first you mentioned a case where the police used force, but sir, according to Article 13 of U.S. Police Act, what the police officer did in that person killing the 22-year-old is a punishable offense. So don't you believe that what he did was punishable, and the judiciary will take care of it?
Sir, can you precipitate your question?
Sir, in the starting, you mentioned an example of a police killing a 22-year-old. So according under Article 13 Part B of U.S. Police laws, so it clearly states that what the officer did was punishable, and there are police officer will be deemed as a criminal, and there will be criminal trial against the police officer. What are your comments on this fact?
Right, so it's very good that there will be a criminal offense, but it cannot replace the fact that a 22-year-old died.
Fair enough. Long answer, quick response. Thank you, Gaurav. And I hope your question was answered, Shubhayu. Kamal Kohli or Pranav, do either of you have a question?
I can go ahead with one if Kamal Kohli doesn't have.
Right.
Yeah, Pranav, go ahead.
Right, go ahead, Pranav.
Okay, so Gaurav, a very simple question to you. You said, and I quote, that any decision made by the police force is usually not the correct decision. Number one, on what basis or stats are you drawing this very, very controversial conclusion? And number two, do you not believe that the years of training that a policeman goes through before finally getting the designation of a police officer is not enough to equip him with the decision-making ability to know when and when not to use force?
Right. So, sir, as for the statistics, the police brutality statistics clearly show that police officers they are using force whenever they deem it they're using force against individuals, even though there's no justification for it. And as for the second question, can you please repeat that?
So you said that okay. So I'll basically repeat the second part of the question, wherein you said ki the decision made by the police force is usually not the correct decision. So do you not believe that the years of training that happens before the police person actually gets the power to become a police officer is enough to equip him with the basic ability to make a decision ki when force is required and when not?
So examples have clearly shown us that more often than not, the decisions are not the decisions by a police officer, even though he may be very, very experienced, they are not true. They're not correct because any decision is influenced by a lot of factors. There's not just a single factor that that makes the decision that the police uses when he makes a decision. So so if a particular police officer feels that he should be using force in in any situation, and another police officer feels he shouldn't be using force in that situation. So firstly, there's a controversy as to which decision is correct. Now, considering that, you can take the example of George Floyd. You can take the example I cited in the beginning of my speech regarding in California. And you can take police brutality statistics. The decisions by police officers aren't correct, and therefore the training by police officers usually is not influencing, as we can see from real life examples.
Suryansh, is there scope for a follow-up, or do we not have time for one?
I'd allow you to, but I request the both of you to keep your questions and the answer short.
Okay, so again, you said, and I quote, more often than not, the decision is incorrect. There must be some statistics, like you brought up police brutality statistics. I'd like you to just go over them once again and point out to me how it is more often than not, how it is more often than usual that the police's decision to use force is wrong. Like, where do you have the statistics? Can you just send them to me?
I have a statistics. I'll tell you. I have a statistic of police brutality, right? So the Nigerian police force, they're responsible for hundreds of extrajudicial killings and unlawful killings and enforced disappearances. And majority of the cases go uninvestigated or unpunished. Families and victims usually have no recourse to justice or redress, and many of them not even get to know what happened to their loved ones. So is this enough, or do you want another example?
I can provide you. We can go ahead, Suryansh.
Right. I think I've understood what you were trying to say, Pranav. Thank you, Gaurav. And we would now be moving forward with the next speaker. Thank you again, Gaurav. We will be moving forward to who I know for a fact is the correct speaker this time, Shubhayu. Shubhayu, can you hear me? Are you with us? Perfect.
Yeah. Can I start?
Yes, you have 4 minutes on the clock. The floor is yours.
So I will state first how the motion is partially incorrect. Like the motion is the House believes police should not be allowed to use forces as and when they see fit. Now I would like to clearly mention, according under Indian police laws to 1886, a police can take military or force, and after verbal warning, after physical control, the police has the right or has the to use force intermediate weapons for defense and offense. Now let's understand something. Let me bring in a case of Manipur, when during the lockdown, where a police officer had to use force to protect himself, to use lathi charge to protect himself from an angry mob who attacked the police officer when he said them to stay at their homes during lockdown. Now let's understand how vital it is, how vital force is. Now under policing of India, according to report of policing in India, report 2019, 73% of people in India do activities or criminal laws which may lead the police officer to use third degree violent methods. Now let's understand something. Now let's understand that Article 312 of the Constitution gives the police officer a right to use force, whenever it is essential. Now, my fellow delegates have brought in some specific cases which under the US law, which I've earlier mentioned, and Indian law, are punishable if the reason given behind the killing of the person or is not legal. Now let's understand that 43% of people in India don't tend to stop in verbal warnings, which leads to use of lathi charge or tear gases. Now, as responsible citizens, we first need to make the citizens understand that police is there for their own safety and they are not there for brutality. Now, let's understand something that members need to understand how, like, let me bring in a very vital case of Kanpur, where a police officer had used lathi to stop two people, or use violence to stop a girl being raped. Now, various politicians, various so-called activists came here and suggested that why was violence brought in, or verbal warning could be used. Now, let me state that verbal warning, which is the first, is not very powerful, or it cannot be used to stop violence. And let's understand. My earlier delegate brought in a lot that various factors depend, but we need to understand that the police are there in the ground level, and whatever activity, whatever cry, whatever decision they take as a responsible police officer. And let's understand that if we do not, like, they are in the ground level, they are there when the activities occurred, and we here sitting here with half of the facts can't comment on was it legal or was it illegal. The judiciary is present there, the laws are present there for commenting it. Now, now I would like to say that if the police doesn't take force in the hand to stop violence, to maintain law and order, will the citizens take up arms to protect other citizens?
Right, fair enough. With that, thank you, Shubhayu, for your speech. And we will now be taking questions upon it. And seeing as all three of the speakers on the other side have a question, we'll take a question from Aditya first, followed by Prakhar.
All right, sir. So the examples that you mentioned in the cases in which police uses force are actually very dire. So of course, when somebody is getting raped, we would like to use force in order to protect them. Members of the side proposition are not disregarding the entire use of force. But don't you think that since in India, most of us do not have the ability to hold arms, so we do not pose a mortal threat to the police. So don't you think it is better to at least curb or limit the use of force rather than giving the entire power to the police and letting them do whatever they want?
Now, sir, I've brought in a stat and again bring in a stat. It is under the Policing India Report 2019. 73% of people do not stop by verbal warnings, or they tend to use violence or tend to attack the police officers, which leads the police officers to use weapons or use lathis and other stuff to protect their own lives. Does the proposition side do not care for the lives of the police officers?
He asked me a question. Shall I answer that at the end of his speech?
I take that as a rhetoric, Dityaraj. I apologize. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Prakhar, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Just a short question. The speaker talked about there being several acts by the police that are punishable under the law. So I would like to ask the speaker that is the police present in this world to perform punishable offences?
Now, so understand. There are pros and cons. When you take a decision, there will. Sorry, can you repeat your question? Sorry. Can you repeat your question?
Right. Precipitate it and repeat it, please, Prakhar.
Yeah. Is the police present in this world to perform punishable offences?
Sir, now let's understand that not every decision by a police officer is punishable. So, sir, we need to understand that laws govern and their maybe there are maybe or there are few cases. There are cases where police do activities which are punishable, or they take wrong decisions which by outer influence, which is there where police is there, where is laws to protect or to stop this kind of, or to like punish this kind of officers who do wrong stuff.
Right. On that note, thank you, Shubhayu, for answering the question. Prakhar, I hope it is answered. That in mind, Komal Kohli or Pranav, do either of you have a question towards Shubhayu?
I'll go ahead.
Right, fair enough. Go ahead, Pranav.
So all of your arguments were based on the assumption that whatever the police does, it does so keeping ethics and morals in mind. Are you not accepting a scope where for the police to not be ethical in their working, be it motivated through racial bias or like it happened in the case of George Floyd? So are you assuming that the police, the entire police in the world, will always work on ethical and moral lines, and therefore they should be given complete autonomy to use force whenever necessary?
Sir, now understand when there, now you said that George Floyd case, now understand there are laws. If these kind of activities are taken place, are done by the police, there are laws to punish the police. Now, when you, sir, can you repeat the second part of your question?
It's okay. So basically, you said na ki the police should get all rights because the police are there on the ground level. So all of those arguments are working on the assumption that the police will only engage in brutality when there is absolute need. Are you not accepting a scope wherein the police might not be ethically or morally right?
Now, sir, there are 1% or 2% where are these cases, but so basically they are taught this national ethic and moral things in training, and they are taught these things and taught the ways or the situations where they can use these kind of activities. So I don't find any point of not giving the police the right or authority to use violence or sorry, use force.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Shubhayu. Pranav, once again, I hope that answers your question. That in mind, we will now be moving forward to the next speaker in this debate, which is Prakhar Drolia. Prakhar, are you with us?
Yeah, thanks,
All right. So, Prakhar, you have 4 minutes on the clock. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Police, the group of people responsible for protecting all citizens of a country in all situations, respecting their rights. Police is your friend. Almost every police squad in the world says that. But what happens when your friend does something even your enemy might not do in a single instance? I'll tell you what happens. We get cases such as Jairaj and Lennox, George Floyd, Tennessee versus Garner, Connor, and several such other cases. Use of I, Prakhar Drolia, hereby say that I stand proposing the motion. Use of force, defined by the police themselves as use of any verbal, physical, chemical, impact, electronic, or firearm force. So let's have a look at this topic from different perspectives. Talking legally, in several countries, including India, the largest democracy, have laws such as the IPC section 146, which state that if any citizen stops a police force or uses violence or force against a police person, is to be held guilty for the same. Why aren't the same laws present for the police? Now, why doesn't the same rule apply to police officials, especially when we see cases such as Jairaj and Lennox every now and then? In many cases, such as Tennessee versus Garner in America, where an unarmed 15-year-old teenager was killed by the police, the court ruled that it was unnecessary to use force in that case. These police people are later acted against and also suspended and rusticated. But the person who was the victim, who was killed, we can't get that person's life back. That is why we need to work from the start and from the roots so that no one loses their life in the first place. From a humanitarian perspective, it has been reported several times that use of force by any human or police person against anyone is a violation of the fundamental human rights, due to which the police forces in Jammu and Kashmir have been criticized a lot in recent history. Can you justify that? From an ethical perspective, it is considered that any action that is for the greater good of the people and society is considered to be ethical. please explain to me as to how killing an innocent, proven innocent, unarmed teenager is ethical. How killing a diabetic patient who was just walking on the street is ethical. There needs to be strict laws for the use of force and should not be left to the decision of the police. It is the questions of a person's life and their rights. The police are trained for proper execution and help for and not for proper murder and execution of a messy arrest. There should be proper laws such as police can only fire when someone tries to harm them, when there is proof that the victim has tried to harm the police. The police don't like civilians mocking them, so why should civilians like the police beating them? Give better equipment for safety of police. When people raise the question of police safety, give them better equipment, give them bulletproof shields, give them bulletproof vests. Countries such as Nigeria are also slowly trying and coming to par with the current international guidelines. So why shouldn't we try to increase the global benchmark? Countries will themselves follow. You could be the next dead victim, I say. I conclude by saying that the police can't make a decision as tough as a quantum mechanics equation in a split second. Make everyone's life easier and safer. So I say that police should not see it fit, but the law should. So there should be proper laws for use of force.
With time to spare, thank you for your speech, Prakhar. That highlights the argument, to conclude the arguments of the proposition very convincingly. We will now be taking questions upon their speech. Upon a speech, we will take a question first from Aditya. Aditya.
I don't have a question.
I apologize. Sorry, I'm very bad with pronunciations. Aditya.
Yeah, so the proposition speaker can this, yeah, so sir, question is that for once a proposition speaker comes up and says that the example of the Nigerian police should be taken into account because they are harming the other people. There's a continuous number of deaths that occur due to police brutality, and now you come and say that other countries should follow the Nigerian policy because they are trying to increase the effectiveness of police, reduce the police brutality. So sir, how do you justify your stance that what should the house look into, like how should the proposition, no, how do you justify your statement? How do you justify your statement?
Okay, first of all, a very long question. And second of all, I would like to request everyone to pay attention when I spoke. You have clearly misquoted me. I told that they are trying to come up to the global standards, to the global par. And if we increase the international benchmark, countries will follow. That is what happens. And I took an example saying that Nigeria is trying to come up to par with the international guidelines by making changes in their constitution and in their laws. Sir, first of all, please hear me clearly before you ask a question.
Fair enough. With that, thank you very much, Prakhar. We will now take another question, if there is one. Right.
Yeah.
Shubhayu, yes. Shubhayu, go ahead.
So, sir, you stated that the police should take permission before doing any kind of use of force. So, do you believe that the police who is in the ground level, who understand the situation, should take permission from someone who is not present in a situation, who doesn't know what the ground level situation is there? So, do you believe that this will lead to this will lead to stop maintain of law and order?
Okay. So, sir, first of all, could you please tell me that where did I use the word permission in my whole entire speech? Second of all, let me give you an example. Sir, I talked about there being a law. If there is a rule stating that if I hit you, you can hit me back. You don't have to think that, okay, should I hit him back? No, you know that if I hit you, you hit me back. If I don't hit you, you don't hit me back. It's as simple as that. If there is a law, the police knows that law, they can act in a split second. They don't need to take decisions. So where did I use the word permission, and where does the essence of permission come into this?
Fair enough. That in mind, thank you, Prakhar, racking it up very convincingly for the proposition. We will now move on to the last speaker of the day, which is Aditya. I hope I got it right this time. You have 4 minutes on the clock, Aditya. And yeah, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Right, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So good evening to one and all. So I, being an opposition speaker, would present my arguments one by one as to why I think that a police might have the ability to use a force when he or she wills. We must first understand that the use of force by a law enforcement official becomes necessary under certain specific conditions which are permitted by law, such as in self-defense of another individual or the self-defense or the protection of another group. We must understand that there is no universally agreed definition of force. As far as I believe that the force of as the force of the police is the amount of effort required by a police to compel compliance by an unwilling subject. You must understand that all the people of this house must understand that each and every officer everywhere around the world receives a particular set of guidance, receives a training by their particular agencies. But we must understand that there is no universal rule that governs when and where officials should use force. That completely depends on the amount of training that depends on their training, depends because the police, when we see that a police is being trained, must understand that police is being trained by a certain rules, certain regulations that he or she follows when it comes to an actual ground level scenario. When we talk about force, we must keep in mind that which is the thing that is most important in case of police force, that is the context in which the incident takes place. We know that no two officers or no two individuals uh, assess a particular situation in the same way. We must understand that for this purpose only situational awareness is required, and for this officers are trained to judge when a crisis requires the use of force to regain control of the situation and when it is not required. For this sole purpose certain training objectives are given or trained to officers. For example, a process known as a decision based live fire, or should we say a process such as the SWAT operations or a partial response. All of these are certain training which an officer undergoes in order to make him best fit in order to assess a particular situation. You must understand that every officer knows that there is a possibility that he or she will have to use deadly force during the course of their career. We must also understand that most officials go through their entire career never have to use deadly force, but when certain officers use force, there is most of the time, except some certain sporadic incidents, most of the time the use of deadly force is in order to protect themselves or someone else. Must understand that uh, study of combat also shows us that most police are reluctant to use force until they see that a certain threat to the community or certain threat to the individual is present. You must understand that section, for example, the section 46 of the Indian law states that it authorizes the police officers to use all means necessary to effectively arrest a person when either the person forcibly resists arrest or attempts to evade arrest, and if the person is accused of an offense punishable under the law by life imprisonment or death penalty, then the officer may use lethal force. You must understand that when a police uses lethal force, the officer himself has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent danger to the society or a certain physical injury to the officer or any other person. You must
Right.
understand that
Wrap up.
these all yeah, we must understand to conclude my speech. We must understand that all these decisions made by police are done as they are identified to able to identify situations where such measures are required, and thus after all the training that they undergo, they they can have the will to, they should have the will when and where to use force, because at the end of the day it is they who carry out the force and not us, and at the end of the day it is they who have the basic knowledge to use force in a certain situation and not us. So that decision making capability of a police should be respected, because other than the police
Right.
at a
Prabhat,
basic in a country.
yeah, I'm going to stop you there. I think
Okay.
I apologize to interrupt you, but because we have a time
Yeah, it's fine.
constraint, I'll have to stop you there. The judges have heard your arguments, so uh, they will be marking you accordingly. Don't worry. So that in mind, we'll be taking two questions on the speech. We'll take it from Gaurav as well as Aditya.
Right. So the speaker mentioned that the police forces, after a lot of training, they will be experienced enough and to make the correct decision to make a correct on-spot decision. But sir, if you take the but sir, considering that there are a lot of factors which go into a police making any decision, and also considering that the situation in Nigeria, where although the police forces, they are experienced, they know what decision they should take, yet there is brutality, yet there is extrajudicial killing. Take the situation of George Floyd, take the situation in California, take the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. There are a lot of situations. So how do you justify your statement about the police being experienced?
Okay. So, sir, to justify my statement, so we must understand that at the end of the day, an officer's goal is to regain control as soon as possible in a threatening situation while protecting the community. We must understand that use of force is at most times a officer's last option and a necessary one in order to restore safety. So you must understand, when we see certain cases where the police is not able to take the right decisions, must understand that all these decisions come in a split second window. And you must also understand that in this split second window, certain certain accidents may occur. But you must understand that when we say that certain accidents may occur, most of the times we see that whenever a police uses a lethal force, which is most of the time a less probability of chances, it most of the time leads to
Right,
leads to
Aditya,
the betterment of situation.
wrap it up.
Yeah, leads to the betterment of the situation. So, sir, we must understand there are always two sides to a coin, and certain incidents, certain fallacies on the part of the police may take place, but we should not use that as a point to remove their will at all. Completely, yeah.
Right, fair enough. Thank you, Aditya. I hope that answers your question. And we will take the next question. Go ahead.
Sir, since you mentioned that there is not a universal law curtailing the use of force by police officers, and we have from the examples mentioned by the questionnaire before me, would you advocate for a law that would curtail the use of forces or specific forces in specific situations for the police force?
So, I did not get your question. Can you repeat it once more?
Would you advocate or support the passing of a law which would impose the police officers to use certain forces in specific situations, like when the person is unarmed, they would not be able to use for arms, or when the offender is not applying force, they won't be able to use force, such as like that? Would you support such a passing of such a law? Yes or no question.
No, I would. Yeah. No, I would not support such a passing of the law.
All right, fair enough. Thank you for sticking to the yes or no, unlike our previous examples. That in mind, to wrap it up, we'll take questions from the judges. Kamal Kohli or Pranav, if either of you have a question.
Pranav, do you have a question?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, all right. So Aditya, all I want to know is what you think use of force encompasses, and do you think that it's okay for the police to use all of it, everything that falls under the phrase use of force, as and when they please?
Yeah, ma'am. So when I refer to as use of force, we must understand that in every different situations there is a particular different definition for a use of force. In some situations, the use of force might be done for self-defense. In some situations, it might be done for the protection of the society or the protection for the other individual from and in some situations, the prevention of that person to do anything that goes against the law. You must also understand that when the office, ma'am, can you repeat the second part of the question?
I just wanted to know if everything that falls under use of force, is all of that okay for a police officer to judge as and when to use it?
Yeah, Ma'am, we must understand that even when we come to use of force, there are certain users of force, certain categories of users force that all policemen know that when to use and when not to use, and they also tend to have more experience than other individuals and training and the necessary equipment to respond to threats in particular ways. So, ma'am, we must understand that when you say that all kinds of forces a policeman should be allowed to use, you must understand that all the forces that a policeman uses are stated by the law, and every policeman at all times tries to comply with that law.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you, Aditya. I hope that answers your question, Kohli. That in mind, we have come to the end of this debate. And before we move on to Kamal, Kohli, and Pranav, uh, I would be putting up a poll on your screens. And before we wrap up, we would launch a poll and find out whether or not the motion was carried or not. That in mind, you guys can take a quick vote while the judges tabulate their results. All right, guys, we're back. Can all of you keep your cameras on? We'll be declaring the results now. So before we actually move on to it, I'd simply like to say it was quite fantastic to watch. The debate today was quite productive. That's what I can say on my own capacity. And Pranav and Kamal Kohli would give you a bit more insight into what they felt. Kamal Kohli, why don't you begin?
Oh, okay. So firstly, I want to say sorry for being late. I fell asleep. But apart from that, it was a very fun debate. The motion is something I've been wanting like people to debate for a while now. So it was really nice. But like one thing I feel, and I think Pranav will say the same thing, is that side opposition kind of let side propositions run away with this today because of the fact that you guys didn't put in enough research into why the police should be allowed to use force as and when they can, why they're equipped enough or why they're cognitively trained enough to make that decision. I mean, if you guys made that clear, I feel like this would have been a tougher battle when it at least comes to side versus side. However, keeping that aside, I feel like you guys put an effort into this. All of you were genuinely good. I feel like all of you can improve on your speaking skills a little, when it comes to the style and the way you deliver yourself, because that counts as well. Like if you give a smart delivery, we look forward to listening to you and we listen to you with more concentration. Apart from that, I think content was pretty good considering it's a very valid and important issue today. Yeah, I had fun. That's it. I think Pranav will like to say something now.
Right.
Um,
Pranav, go ahead.
I'm sorry if there's some background noise, but working along the lines that Kamal Kohli presented, oratory was something that I felt also was lacking in today's debate, because it is not usually the case, but you guys have to be more confident when you speak. And like she pointed out, you have to present your points more smartly. Like in terms of fluency, it was still okay, but there is a way you present your speeches. There was also a lack of rhetoric, which I felt. So those are some places where you can improve upon. And it was a little difficult personally in my opinion for the opposition, and but for the proposition I felt that there were some arguments that, being in this debate, there were some key arguments that the proposition has to bring up, and those were things that I could not find any members of the proposition bring up. So yes, good job done both sides, and especially personally I would like to say Aditya did a good job of defending the opposition. But apart from that, everyone very good performance, and it was enjoyable for me to be a part of.
Right.
Suransh,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Pranav, and thank you, Kamal Kohli, again for coming in. And yeah, like they said, to reiterate, yeah, very good job by all of you, and there'll be more every week. So you guys can feel free to take part. So that in mind, we will now be declaring the results of the third, second, and then the first speaker in terms of the winners. And we'll start with Kamal Kohli and then alternate with them and with him and her and Pranav and until the best speaker. So Kamal Kohli, do the honors.
Suryash, we're only supposed to announce second and then best, right?
No, it was the third. It was third, second, and then first. So the top three.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. So the third best speaker award goes to Gaurav.
Perfect. Congratulations, Gaurav. And Pranav, why don't you take over for the second in this debate?
The person who came second today for us was Adityo. Adityo. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but yes. Yeah.
Don't worry, that's something I fall to every second,
Yeah.
every other second. So congratulations, Adityo. And finally, for the best speaker, although it's no spoiler at this point, Kamal Kohli, why don't you give us the result?
Right. So the best speaker for us today was somebody who was very calm and rational and had good structured arguments.
I think Kohli has some network errors. I will take over as to go along her lines. Yes, he was calm, he was composed, and he delivered his speeches in a very impactful manner. And yes, it is no secret here, but yes, the best speaker is in fact Prakhar Drolia, who is actually the youngest member of this debate. So congratulations to you, Prakhar, and to all speakers. I wish you success in later debates. And yeah, I won't keep you in for very long. Is there anything you guys would like to say before we wrap up?
Wait, Suryansh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Congratulations, Prakhar.
Right. That in mind, anything else, guys? Fair enough. So in that case, that's what that was. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for joining, guys.